Well, here we go again, back on Radio Entrepreneurs. My name is Jeffrey Davis, and we continue to stream stories of how people are succeeding in this economy. I think it's really interesting, the basis of our economy, entrepreneurship. Uh, and after this interview, I'm back to working on my business and my clients. So it's a busy day. Uh, let's see if I can do this right. I'd like to introduce Honoria DaSilva-Kilgore, founder of Personal College Counseling. Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, I hope I did okay so far.
So far, so good.
Tell us about PCC.
PCCI for Personal College Counseling Inc. Um, it's personal college counseling, just like it sounds. I work with students individually and with families to maximize their college potential, to make sure that we are going down the right lane and path for them, and giving them the best advice as far as where we should look, how we get there, and what to realistically expect financially from any given institution. I got to say, my numbers are pretty accurate, so I always love that. So I track everything. That's why I can say that.
Well, the landscape of universities and where people go and by category has been changing dramatically. I've just been reading about uh, how certain Canadian universities are making it hard now for Americans where they used to be a target. I've heard about how people are going more towards Southern schools where alumni have no influence anymore. So there's a lot of changing dynamics that you have to deal with. Can you address that a little bit?
Sure. There's been a lot of a brouhaha about, eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion offices all around the country after a landmark decision in the Supreme Court. However, that really was very specific, and only a very small amount of highly selective schools would have been affected directly by that decision. But colleges and universities kind of ran with that. It doesn't mean they still don't consider those factors, but it's being done in a much different way than it was before. But the support for a lot of minority students is kind of gone once you get to campus, and I think it's important to know that, especially if you identify with any particular group, how are you going to feel about being there on campus? Also, the idea that these legacy preferences, those are strongly going out of favor. So it might not matter that your dad went to Holy Cross. That doesn't mean you're going to Holy Cross or anywhere else, depending on how they're doing that. Most schools still ask you, though, um, do you have a connection to us? Did anyone go here? Stuff like that. But it's not going to have the same cachet that it used to in the past. As far as international students go, for the US, that's still a jackpot that they seek here, because international students pay more to come and study in the US. Even if they get some merit aid or assistance, it's not to the same level that we give our own kids. So yeah, American colleges and universities love getting foreign exchange students to come and study here. The same might not be as true in reverse. However, there's still some great opportunities if that's what you want to do, to study abroad. Countries that don't really even charge for university education, or have it, comparatively speaking to us, a much lower cost point. So that's always interesting. I feel that most freshmen or rising freshmen going to college are not necessarily ready to just fly the nest and be sent away for a 4-year experience like that. There are some rarities, but I do love the schools that have great study abroad options, whether it's a semester or a year. I think those are wonderful if you can take advantage of them. I'm not a fan of the short versions, like, oh, you have a 3-week break in between semesters, let's go. I think that's more of a glorified vacation in my own opinion, but and they're expensive. So why not get the most bang for your buck and pay what you would have paid for a semester anyway, but do it somewhere else that's going to enrich that experience. So that's, I think, a lot to what you said, but also, I don't know if you've heard, it made all the news recently how the UMass system has now implemented free tuition for residents that qualify that make under 75,000 a year. I think that's a game changer locally for potentially a lot of families. I think it's also going to make UMass Amherst even more competitive because you're going to get more qualified students that might have not have thought they could have afforded that.
Is that just for Massachusetts residents or is that across the board?
You have to be a Massachusetts resident. And when I say that, I mean a legal resident. So Massachusetts has the policy of treating undocumented students, for example, that may have been here their whole lives but aren't documented. They would be treated as international students, so they wouldn't qualify under the residency requirement. Also, to be a resident of Massachusetts, to qualify for that, you have to have lived here immediately for the 12 months prior to enrollment. So it's not like you can just move to Massachusetts in the summer and say, hey, I'm a resident now and I want to go this fall. So there's a few restrictions, but the big one was the gross income. That's huge. But you got to remember that only covers 4 schools. That covers UMass Amherst, UMass Dartmouth, UMass Boston, and UMass Lowell. So
Well, you can name off all 4. That's better than me.
well, we still have more, but they're the state university, system. So it's a little different, and those 4 are so dramatically different from each other too. And you still got to see is that where you're going to do well, you know?
Well,
But I think it's a
interesting.
great development.
It'll be interesting to watch how other states follow that trend. I'm going to ask you a different type of question. When I went to university on my dinosaur, it was a lot different, a little bit more independent world that I existed in. Today's a little bit different with American schools and all the little extras, especially the private schools can give you. Both my adult children did break years. What do you think when you're consulting with people about break years?
I'm assuming you mean the gap year between.
Yeah, that's
that
what you
graduation.
call. Okay, you're probably using the right vernacular, and I don't. So
Yeah, I again have mixed feelings about that. I think a gap year is useful in one of 2 instances. One being you're just not ready. You didn't do your homework right. You don't have the foundational basis to get to where you want to go, and you need more time to work on that. I think taking a gap year to do that is great. And what I mean by that is you didn't take any SATs and you're looking at schools that those scores are required. Well, you don't have the requirement. You're not going to get in, and you really want something like that. So you need the time to prep for that. Or maybe you're targeting certain schools and your academic record's not so great. You need to polish up on a couple of things. You can take some time to do that. Or you just simply need to work and save some money. Okay. But for the kids who say they're going to take a gap year just because and they have no plan, if you have no plan, plan to fail is how I look at it. If you just like, they're never going to get back to it. Other stuff, life in general, is going to get in the way and they lose the motivation. So if you have a gap year, I need you to have a plan for what you're doing with that gap year. Are you studying? Are you working? Are you taking on some other experiences? Maybe you're going to travel abroad that year and do something life enhancing, or you're volunteering somewhere, or you're doing something to buttress your next step. But just to kind of fall off and not have a plan for that year, then they don't go anywhere.
Always very interesting speaking with you. And I know it's a changing landscape. The university landscape in America could change dramatically too in the next year or so, depending on how things go politically. If someone's looking for your assistance, how do they find you?
Easiest thing is just go straight to my website, personalcollegecounseling.com. You can email me directly with my nickname, nod@personalcollegecounseling.com, or call 508-622-5250. You can text that as well. So I'm really, I think, very available. And if I don't pick up immediately, I will get right back to you. It just means I'm in a meeting or something.
Well, I want to thank you for, coming back to Radio Entrepreneurs again. Remind everybody there's more stories to come on Radio Entrepreneurs.